In this tutorial, we will go through a complete example of how to complete a simple Hello World assignment using Eclipse and the eGit plugin to access GitHub via Eclipse. So first we'll create a new assignment repository. We will import the project from that repository directly into Eclipse. We'll edit our code and create some test cases. Then once we have a working solution, we'll add our new files, commit our changes, and verify in Travis that our test cases are all still passing. So the first thing we want to do is go to the assignment page. So each assignment, project, lab assignment, will have a description that looks something like this: the name of the assignment, the due date, any relevant background material, resources, other information that you need in order to complete the assignment. And then partway down the page, you'll have a set of submission requirements. So those submission requirements will provide you with a link that will allow you to create a new private GitHub repository specifically for this assignment. So here I'm logged in as myself in GitHub, and it's asking me to accept this assignment so that it will create a new repository with the name of the assignment followed by my GitHub username. So once I accept the assignment, it takes a second, and then it says I'm ready to go. And if I click this link, it might say that it's still preparing the new repository. So it takes a few seconds. If we delete the import and refresh the page, we should see that the repository is ready to go. So this is a brand new repository that contains configuration information, source code, that's the skeleton code that I need for this assignment, as well as any test cases. So as we'll look at toward the end of the tutorial, we will use Travis CI to do automatic build and runs of test cases. So the pom.xml file and the Travis file are two configuration files that specify how that should happen. So for the moment, just assume that those files should never be changed. You should not change the configuration information in either of those markup files. The rest of the stuff that you see here, or most of the rest of the stuff that you see here, is Eclipse configuration information. So the class path and the project will allow you to import this directly into Eclipse without having to create a new project. We also see the README, which is that same assignment description we were just looking at. And then we have a source directory that contains our source code. So there are two directories here: a test directory that will contain one, or in most cases more than one, class containing a bunch of different test cases. So you should never, ever, ever change these test cases. If you change these test cases, you are unlikely to get full credit for your solution because we will test your code against the original test cases. So you can look at these test cases, but you should not change them. What you should change is the skeleton code that's provided in the main directory. So in this case, you only have one file. You might have multiple Java files. And in this case, we have one simple method that we need to implement. And you'll notice that the convention that we use here is a to-do that specifies the code that should either be replaced or added to with your solution. So in this case, it's specifying that I should replace the body of this method with the solution that does what is described here in this method comment. So what I want to do is replace this code with code that will do this. So once I have created this repository, the instructor has the ability to activate Travis CI for this repository. So this is not a step that you will complete, but I want to show you that in Travis, if I sync the account, what I will see is that new repository will appear here in my list. So I, as the instructor, once you create your repository, will activate that repository, and at the end of the tutorial, we'll look at what that means in terms of what happens when you check in your code to GitHub. So we've created our new assignment repository, so the next step we need to do is to import the project into Eclipse so that we can actually edit our code. So we'll fire up Eclipse, which often takes a minute. And I'm going to create my workspace in this directory that I've created here, srollins cs514/samples. So that's where I will store the projects for all of my sample code. So it takes a minute, and if I haven't unchecked this box, I will see this when Eclipse starts, and I can simply select Workbench, which will take me to the browser, the Java browser that I will normally use when I'm working on my projects. And if I have a bunch of active projects in this workspace, they will appear over here. So in this case, what I want to do is import a new project from Get. So I'm going to clone URI, and to get the URI, I'm going to go back to my GitHub repository, select clone or download, and then click this icon here, which will copy this URL, which I will paste here. I will enter my credentials. And it looks like it didn't like my credentials. So I'll try again. It wants to import the master branch. It often will specify a directory that I don't want, so I'm going to be very explicit and say that I want it in this samples directory. And I will allow it to continue to check import existing Eclipse projects and finish. And now I should have a local copy of everything that we saw on GitHub, and it should appear over here in this left-hand side. I will also notice, if I type ls, it's created this new directory, and inside of that directory is all of those same resources that we had seen before. So I typically want to ignore the test directory. I want to make sure that I don't change any of the code in there, but the main directory contains the file that I actually do need to change for this particular assignment. So I want to complete this method such that it returns the string hello. So I will delete what's in there, and I will type return hello. And now I have a few courses of action, so I could jump right into the test cases and see if they work, but it's probably a bad idea to do that. A better idea is to develop some of my own test cases to make sure that this seems to be working as I expect it to before I hop into the test cases. So I'm going to create a driver with a main method, and inside of that driver, I am going to create a new instance of hello world. And to make sure that it is the say hello method is returning what I expect, I am going to print out the result of calling that method. So I've completed my driver, and if I run this code, I can right-click, run as a Java application. It should print out hello. Okay, which is not exactly what I want, but let's see what happens if I try to run the test cases. So I can run the test cases in one of two ways. So again, I right-clicked here, and I can either choose Run as JUnit test, in which case I'll see something that looks like that, or I can choose Run as Maven test. And I show you this because when we look at Travis CI at the end of the tutorial, you'll see this same kind of output. So basically, Maven is the build system that we're using to build and run the test cases through Travis CI. So you'll notice in both cases, we have a failure. And if I select this test case and look at the output here, or if I look at this output here, I get a hint as to what's going on. So it looks like I didn't read the directions very carefully. It wanted me to say capital H hello with an exclamation point at the end, and I used lowercase hello with no exclamation point at the end. So I need to be very, very specific here. So I modify my code and I run my driver again, and now the output looks better. So let's go ahead and run the unit tests again. And this is what we want to see. 0 failures, all green check marks. And if we run a successful Maven test, we should see something that looks like that, which is exactly what we want to see. Now, if we go back over here to GitHub and we look at our code, we should notice that this is still the old code. Okay, so all of this code down here is still our old code. That's because all of the changes that we have made, we've made locally. So in order to make sure that we get credit for our assignment before we're done, we need to make sure that we commit all changes to GitHub. So the way that we're going to do that through Eclipse is we're going to right-click on the project and select Team, Add to Index. Now it turns out if you have open the Git staging window, and you'll find that by going to Window, Show View, Other, Git staging. Again, Window, Show View, Other, Git staging. And that will open up a window that will show you the changes that you have added. So once I clicked add to index, that's when the changes showed up here in this bottom portion of the window, which is where we want to see those changes. So what we can do is we can enter a message that specifies what this change has done. So we can say that this is a completed solution to say hello. And if we had been working on multiple methods and we didn't have everything finished, we might say, methods 1 and 2 are complete, method 3 is still failing in some particular way. So once we've entered our commit message, we can select commit and push. And it's very, very important that we select commit and push and not just commit. So if we just select commit, it won't appear on the server. Commit and push is what makes sure that it appears on the server. So asks for our credentials, enter our credentials. We should get some kind of a confirmation dialog box. We can say okay. And now, if we reload our changes, we should see the new solution. And if we look in this directory here, we will also see the driver, right? Which was a new file that we actually added to the project. So fantastic. Now the last step that we want to think about is verifying in Travis CI that our test cases are working. So if I go over to Travis and I select this particular repository, what I will see is that it looks to be building my solution and running my test cases. So it's still kind of working here. So if we give it a second, maybe if we do a reload, it might be a little bit stuck on the output. So if we give it a few minutes, it should be running our test cases, and it doesn't always take quite this long, but you have to be a little bit patient. So basically what it's doing is it's building the code and running the test cases. So what we want to see is a green check mark to specify that the test case is passed. And yay, that's what we see here. So this right here is the message that we entered when we did our commit. And then what we're noticing here is that for that particular commit that was indicated by that message, we were passing the test cases, right? We got passed and the green check mark. Now, just for comparison, let's suppose that we had made a mistake and we want to make sure that we add this change so that we get it here in the stage changes. We are introducing a mistake. We do commit and push. Again, have to enter our credentials. Should be pushing it to the server, our confirmation. And then if we go back to Travis, turned yellow again because it saw that there was a new commit. So it said, hey, I need to rebuild this again. So again, it's going to take a few seconds. It's thinking, it's taking its time. And what we should see is that it fails the test cases. So we should see that it actually gives us a red X instead of a green check, which is, of course, not what we want. You'll notice that the output here is very similar to that output that we saw when we ran the Maven tests, right? Because it's using Maven to actually do the build and run the tests. and we see that there is a build failure. So if we scroll back up, again, we see the red check. So that was not what we wanted to see. So hopefully, if we checked our code in, we thought we were all good, we went to Travis and we saw that our build was failing, we could go back, fix whatever problem we had, say, hey, we want to make sure we add our files, right? So make the changes, add to index, add a commit message, commit and push. So make the changes, add to index, commit message, commit and push. So fixing exclamation point bug, commit and push. Oh, one more time with the credentials. And one more time in Travis. There we go. It saw that we had checked in a new version. It's running that new version. And hopefully what we will see at the end of it all is the green check mark. So again, it's very, very important to remember that every time you make changes, you need to do that add to index. Almost there. It's building. And yay, build success. So we got the green check mark. That's what we wanted. Now we know that all of this code as well is the same code that's on the GitHub server, so we should be good to go.